Welcome back. We've got another TA report. Your boy Bags with GP and JFDI Nick in the house. Guys, I gotta admit, I haven't been that in tune to everything in the market the last couple of weeks, as you guys know, but this week especially, I was doing some house hunting, but that doesn't mean it wasn't a crazy ass week that I saw from afar. I last week was the going to zero episode, I think we had a pretty good sell off of a week that we were kind of leaning into. So I don't know what the hell's going on. I mean, I think just looking at the chart, like we obviously bounced off the lows. We defended that like 385 area there. But we've been trying to get a reversal for months now. Could this be the one?
Yeah,
It could be. We were just talking, like as we do before we start recording, and we're all kind of just scratching our head a little bit. So it was a little bit misleading of a question for the guys, but I don't know. What are you guys thinking? What are you guys seeing? I mean, we're looking at the SPY S&P 500 right now, and it hit some of those 390, 385 levels we were talking about.
Nick, I'll let you start.
Yeah, I definitely think we're due for a bounce here. Whether or not it sustains, I mean, who's to say? But yeah, we've been kind of talking about, like, the SPY is kind of that 380, 390 that area. It kind of, on my charts I'm kind of watching, it's kind of like that fifth wave or that fifth touch of that channel down. And so, yeah, I would expect to kind of see a bounce at least up into the kind of the 420, let's say 430 area. I think that's where we're going to start to see a little bit of resistance if we do kind of continue higher here. As we were talking, prior to you hitting the record button, I think this is kind of what we want to see anyway. And you can kind of disregard the indexes, generally speaking. I think where you want to pay attention is just where the relative strength shows up. I think that's where we're going to see the next batch of leadership. We want to see what shows up, at least on the active trader side of things. And for the IBD guys, I mean, the IBD and O'Neill style traders, investors, it really shouldn't be in too big of a rush. Pending you're just waiting for that kind of follow through day confirmation. I don't know if Friday was necessarily that or would be considered a follow through day. I would have to defer to some more, like, hardcore O'Neill guys, but I'd like to see us kind of bounce and then at least put in a higher low. If we put in a higher low, then we have a pretty definable pivot to really play against if you weren't buying Thursday, Friday. It'd be tough to buy Thursday, Friday, in my opinion. Just the legs have been chopped out over and over and over again for the last several months. But
yeah, and interesting enough, I just pulled up the Qs here. RSI is at the lowest it's been since the March 2020 fallout, right? Like, I mean, that was down here at like less than 30 and a half.
The weekly actually got down midweek, as low as the 2008 RSI levels. I think I pointed it out. Obviously, we bounced, so the RSI bounced with it by the end of the week. But midweek, we're sitting at like 29 on the weekly.
Yeah, so it actually pulled in a little bit, or pulled up a little bit.
Yeah, it pulled out of the oversold stuff. I think it's hard to use a lot of these indicators in general when you have unabated selling like we've had, right? Like, it's just, and they finally came after the bigger generals, right? So Nick, I think we were talking about this, is like, now you can see the indices go lower, but the stocks that will be our next bull market leaders start to lead higher. So Apple got hit, Microsoft got hit, Tesla got hit, the indices got hit because of those. But then you started to see Roblox is the example. I'm sure everyone's talking about it, so it'll most likely fail this week because that's what usually happens. But that was impressive, and that was post earnings. That wasn't pre earnings, right? They pulled this. That was volume on the weekly, but if you go to the daily, it's even greater here, right? So people are coming in to say, yeah, enough is enough. This we see to be a long-term kind of potential stock, so we're going to start buying. Maybe it goes lower and we can buy some more, but you definitely have support kicking in here. And I was talking about this earlier, is like when you have IPO charts, I stay away from IPOs usually 2 to 3 years, but when you start seeing these types of movements in IPOs near the lows, it's something to start paying solid attention to. I think AFRM was another one that
That weekly bar is crazy on AFRM.
but it still didn't engulf the prior week, right? So as crazy as it wasn't able to take out the prior week's high. And we talked about this, I think one of the first videos, Nick, right? When we were talking about, what was the chip name we were talking about?
I think it was it wasn't MasterCard. It was
a chip. It was LR Lamb Research.
Lamb Research.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Right. And I was like, that with that kind of volume and that kind of push, we weren't able to take out prior pivots. So I was suspect on the move, right? And then obviously the next day, I think it tried, or it failed completely. I can't remember, but that's the thing here with Roblox, is as weak as as strong as that close was towards the end of the week, the fact of the matter of the fact is it still closed above the prior week's high. I mean, lower than the prior week's high, but better than the prior 2 weeks closes. So it's kind of a mixed bag. So you gotta kind of watch this, but that volume coming in at the end here for Roblox is enough to put it on every single trader, short-term trader out there, right? Like on where this is going to be going. I'm sure this hit the scans like no one else, right, Nick?
Yeah, totally. I think for a long-term investor, like at this point, it's kind of like if you have an idea of the names that you want to own, like size risk them for them to go to zero, or size risk for them to take another 50% haircut. You're probably good, wouldn't you think?
I would say yes, but the only caveat is that if this is the major crash that everyone has been talking about since 2010, it's finally coming to fruition, and everyone's going to be fully right, and everyone's going to be fully prepared for. And then if this is the crash that everyone's coming from, there is no V recovery. There is multiple years of sideways if we get those types of moves, right? So you could buy these here. That's the only caveat for me, Nick, is like you can buy these here, price for a 50% potential lower move, but it could be 50% lower for the next 5 years.
Yeah, totally.
Well, when we were talking about Lamb the other day, right? I mean, it basically did what we said it needed to do, is defend that volume profile. And it did. I mean, I think we were saying like 450 somewhere in there might be a good place to take a shot. I mean, look at it now, it's 490. So, I mean,
I was talking more in terms of like, let's say Roblox, AFRM, those kind of things. Like, just, Roblox, for instance, like you want to take a stab here, size risk it for it to go into $15 or something like that.
Yeah, no, I was going to get back to Roblox and AFRM. I mean, I haven't looked at either one of these charts in a minute, but both of them look like they're still firmly in a downtrend, obviously. But when you see that volume, and you guys know how I feel about volume, it's going to be interesting when they reach that resistance point up there. AFRM was the other one that we were just talking about. Very similar. Oh, that's Air France.
That actually looks like a decent bar there.
Yeah, it didn't look too bad. They're pretty clean as the way their downtrend looks. You just want to see them get through that top of the channel resistance, but it'd be nice to taking shots at the bottom of the channels, but
Yeah.
I can see you can make a solid argument that 36 is a good spot to maybe take some off if you got in the lows here on a firm.
But that's puke, right? That's as close as you get to unabated. What was that,
Absolutely.
from 31 straight to 14 without any hesitation on a
Absolutely.
firm?
Yeah,
Man,
that's puke. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, it went from, it hammered on 31.90, 31.76, and in 5 days it went to 13.64. So you had what, a 61% haircut
Yeah,
in 5 days
yeah.
after losing $120. Those are the I give up, right? Like,
Well,
those are
see,
the
I mean,
puke
you had
bars.
a 36 or roughly percent, loss in roadblocks in a
Yep.
handful of days. All of a sudden to have, 50% back up from the bottom. So,
Those are the say uncle moves, right? I've officially said, uncle, I'm done, I'm tapping out.
yeah.
And then every single person who's been holding from, let's say, 90 or 70 thought they were getting a good buy,
wow.
and they just puked out everything,
I
right?
know.
And now they're like, oh crap, it's higher than where I puked out. And you're like, well, that's kind of how the market rolls.
Yeah, it looked like the $30 mark was kind of the puke spot.
Yeah.
Once it lost 30, everybody was like, I'm getting the hell out. But I want you to clarify, GP. You're talking about new bull market leaders or new leaders. I mean, we'd be remiss not to talk about my mega caps and the week that they had. Right? Let's go to Big Daddy Apple just to kick off the show here. I mean, that's not a move you see that often in Apple, right? Just ugly week in the biggest stock in all the land. I mean, yeah, it did have a nice, Friday, and maybe that marked the bottom. But when you're saying new leaders, that to me would suggest the Apples and the Microsofts and the Amazons and the Googles, maybe not on top of your mind to be leaders anymore, or there's the old guard plus new leaders. How are you thinking about that, GP?
So the way I was looking back at this in January of 2021 was that you have the mature companies after nearly 15 years of just crushing it. 2020 was their peak growth, right? They were never going to get that level of peak growth, and they've matured their entire cycle. So now they start pulling into value zones. And what happens in value zones is multiple compression, right? Walmart is just as big as Amazon, for example, but it trades 1 times book or something like that, very cheap, right? Whereas I think Amazon was trading at the time when it was at 3,500 was trading at 3 or 4 times book, right? So we've seen the multiple compression in what these stocks are. They're still going to continue to grow, but Amazon is $500 billion a year. They're not going to start growing at 80% a year again, right? Or 40% a year. So they'll continue so you start getting multiple compression as people start to look for other names that become more likely to have bigger growth, right? And it was a great retest. I don't know why they needed to retest, but they retested it anyway. So my thought process was always, and this is where I was a bit wrong, is like the names, because Kathy Woods is what I was watching, and some of the names she was putting money into, I was like, I could see these guys being the new growth market kind of bull market leaders in the future. I think she was ahead of her schedule, and then she just went weird. Stock gap's down 40% and she's still buying, and I'm like, no, man, at 40% gap downs, you wait till the dust settles. You don't continue to buy, right? That's anyone else. So she lost my votes a little bit there, but I still think that's the process here, is like the old guard is switching to the new guard. They last about 10 to 20 years. ExxonMobil was the king from what, the 80s to the 90s. Right. So that's my thought process is here. Are Apple going to go away? No, because people like Buffett are going to continue to hold it up. He thinks it's a phenomenal company, and it'd be hard to argue that it's not. Right? They're doing $90 billion in buybacks. They're executing at nearly top level talent. They got a product everyone wants.
So a little bit different than Exxon.
Yeah, but so Exxon is a product not that everybody wants, so to speak, but has to use, right? But oil hasn't gone away in the last 30 years. But
No,
Exxon
and we were just talking about energy right before we started this, and you know, I've been wrong a lot, but I mean, I know what you're going to say, GP. You're going to be, but lower volume, but I'm still saying moo here. Like, I don't know, man. Energy to me is just, you know.
I think if energy continues higher, I think it's going to be one of those, it's going to be the easiest hard trade, I think. Where like.
What do you mean by that?
Like it's going to be a melt up. Like it's going to be
a grind. It's not going to pay you out like crazy every day. It's going to be this annoyance grind higher, and you're going to have to wait it through. You might even get shook out on the way up a few times. Like, what was it? Monday opened down 8.5% move down.
Yeah. But like it did back here though, right? Like it came in and just was able to rally higher, which to me is just, I still have a hard time wrapping my head around that energy is really this strong, but
I do too.
It
has been, it is. So
it's underinvested, right? Ultimately, energy, even with this move, is still underinvested compared to technology, compared to biotech, compared to many other names. They make up a small percentage of the overall market caps of the markets, right? They still have, if this is a secular shift out of tech and into real assets like energy, then they still have a huge runway ahead.
Yeah.
I would consider that that's not really the case, and it like that's just not what my thought process here is. But yeah, it's grinding, and it continues to grind and making incremental highs and then getting destroyed, and incremental highs and then getting destroyed. So
that's a hard trade to hold.
Yeah, how do you hold 8.5% down in one day?
Right.
Well, I mean, how do pick a name? Let's take my favorite fuck boy here. 13.9%. That's a week. Sorry, but I mean, how do you hold that, right? Given your thesis on Amazon that the glory
one stock versus an index, though.
Yeah. No,
right?
I get it, right? But
Yeah.
I can still say, right, the XLK, right? I can still point my finger at that guy. So
all of that has never seen an 8.5% move down, 4 or 5%, but not never, but in the recent history, 8.5% is really hard to hold on a single day when it closes at a breakout level, right? If you're a trend trader, if you're watching any of this, if something goes out at the highs of the week, you're expecting continuation and gap up, right?
Fair point.
Yeah.
So and then it reverses to be the worst sector of the day on Monday. It broke through the 20 and the 50 in the same day.
That's a fair point.
It's just bananas, right? So I'm not saying it's not going to continue going up, but it's going to shake the hell out of you the whole way through, as Nick was saying.
The only thing you can do is pick a moving average and add incrementally, I think, versus let's just say the 50-day or something like that. And pretty much just buckle up and hold.
Tighten up those cheeks, right?
Yeah.
Nick, you backing any GLD or miners?
No, nothing.
GLD hit the spot though that we talked about last
It
week.
did.
Yeah, it did.
It did.
That the thing about GLD, we never got the monthly MACD cross. We didn't get it.
Yeah. So Nick, we talked about this last week. I take gold when it takes out all-time highs and have an easy trade. Right
Yeah.
now, it's going to be a miserable nightmare, right? There's just so much supply.
For sure.
So
I'm
like
with you totally.
Looking at the chart of the history of the last 50 years in gold, I'm taking this once this breaks out all-time highs. I'm not front running this. I don't want to
Tie up my money there. Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't want to tie up my money there. I'm with you.
So that's the way to play this. I see the cup and handle. I see a potential inverse head and shoulders here. I see all the things that everyone else is seeing, yet it's not doing any of that stuff. And it didn't get the MACD cross, as you said, but the month is not over yet, Nick.
Right.
Just I don't think it will cross, but yeah, it's clean when it takes out all-time highs. Until then, it's going to be this nightmare. Yes, you'll have to pay an extra $300 or $400 for it, but at least you'll save yourself years or months of agony.
Yeah, save your mental capital.
Chips,
yeah, exactly.
Still languishing.
Look, it was, if you look at the GC futures chart, it peaked in 1980 and then looked like it was going to break out in 2006 May, then went sideways for a year and change, finally took that point out in September of 07. So what is that, 18 months later? And then when it took that out, it was a clean 5 months.
Yeah.
So you could have 18 months sideways here and then it could break out. It's obviously not an inflation hedge or a market hedge, but I don't know what really is anymore. So that's the weird shift these days.
I'll tell you what's not. This guy.
That never was though.
I know, but you know, you heard people chattering about that.
Yeah, I don't. Assets like speculative assets like Bitcoin or even a lot of stocks, they're not inflation hedges, right?
I think that thing's going. I think they're gonna crush the crypto.
To zero.
market.
No, Nick, you're going.
I don't think. I'm not thinking zero. I'm definitely bullish, I think, in the crypto space longer term. I think the ETH and your Bitcoin is going to be your Google and Amazon that emerge from let's just say the 99
For
type
sure.
collapse.
For sure.
You know, where that ends up bottoming out, I'm not going to begin to try and speculate, but I do think we're heading back to 1,000 in Ethereum, probably that 10, 15K in Bitcoin. Kind of like we were saying, or what you were saying, GP, is kind of like once that floor kind of gets taken out, it's kind of like, the glass was shattered there. So
yeah, that's a huge pierce through that support area.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's still held. It didn't even get to close to the base, right? So until we kind of break the 19,000 to 20,000 level,
for sure,
to me, it's still in a decent spot here. But if you're bearish stocks and equities and you're calling for the .com crisis collapse here, you should not be bullish crypto, right?
Sure.
To me, that makes no sense. They're both risk on assets. So if you're hiding out for now, they're coming for you at some point as well.
They're coming for you.
But my personal opinion is we've bottomed, right? Like I'll go out there and say it on an edge here.
Heyo.
What?
I said, hey, yo, big call. We bottomed.
I'm gonna say it, right? It's because if we don't bottom here, the next level of support is 190s, right? And at 190s, this is the cues for me, is like you're gonna get to some ridiculous levels of valuations, right, on these stocks. Like it's just gonna be, you have that pivot of like 285, 286, 11,843 is what I had on my futures chart. Is the level that we danced around from SoftBank days to post-election days, right? So that here is what I'm watching for.
I mean, nobody wants to see the Qs get into the 100s again.
No.
But it's entirely possible that the Qs start to break down because the leaders break down, but not every stock that is in the Qs breaks down. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
Like we were talking about the growth names, the bull market leaders. So that's what we're going to be watching for here. The NASDAQ, and the thing about the Qs is it reclaimed the yearly pivot low by close of the week. So it had a false breakdown here, and false breakdowns sometimes can lead to false fast breakouts, right? So part of me is also, we just had a 24% correction in 6 weeks. So in a 30.4% correction since November, in the last 6 weeks has been 24 of that percent, and it was straight down. In a lot of these moments, in these V move downs, we have V shapes out, and every time we've had a V shape out, it's been caused by a Fed pivot. So what I'll be watching over the next few weeks is, if it's not a Fed pivot and people are just coming in, we can finally start to move away from a market that's driven completely by the Fed, right? That's exactly what's happening here.
And that's what a large part of the bears want, right? Like they're tired of the Fed gaming the system, or so they say, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
So if we V out of this without the Fed intervention, what does that tell you, right?
I mean, bull strong.
Yeah, it just means that we're decoupling from the Fed, which is a great thing for everyone. So it'll be interesting to watch. That's
there's been a lot, talked about the washout here that happened, when Jay Powell was on the wrong side of history, right? This move. And interestingly enough, the weekly RSI is basically the same from this week to when the capitulation bottom happened. It was like bloody Christmas week, basically, right?
Yeah.
To reverse and go higher. So, I wouldn't be mad to see that happen.
So the only thing is, we're at, what was that? We're double the NASDAQ composite and we're at the same RSI. That means we're near double the prices with less leadership, right? So it could be viewed in two ways. It's potentially a double bottom here, or the weakness is now going to come for whatever leadership was remaining, right? And the RSI just keeps trickling lower.
The dip keeps dipping.
Yeah. So it's not, this, to me, the RSI here isn't a necessarily a bullish kind of indicator because it's double bottomed, but you're at double the price in NASDAQ with less and less strength, right? So we could, you'll see it with, if you pull up the Roku chart, I think, if you can, Bags.
Oh, Roku.
Yeah.
The name we haven't mentioned in a minute.
Right. So you'll see like it kind of had a double bottom on the RSI, and then it just continued to break further down, right?
Yeah.
So like it was double bottoming on the RSI, but with less and less strength. So there wasn't any bulls to come in. So that can be made from two sides of the argument. I will have to watch, right? We're at a precarious position. It was really nice to reclaim the yearly pivot low of 297.45 by the end of the week on the Qs, it was really nice to see that happen. And now we need follow through. But I hate when pivots break, because
Roku hit $75.
back to 2017 levels, like it doesn't even make sense anymore, right? Like,
yeah, and I apologize. Normally, I mean, I've of course been a little absent, but this week I was really absent. I knew what was happening on Wednesday and Thursday, but when you haven't looked at a chart like Roku and you see $75, I kind of feel like the Tyrese meme. What more do you want from me?
Dude, look at Square. Square hit 61, I think, or 64.
Wow.
64 it hit.
Gosh. I should have been shopping for stocks and not for houses on Wednesday.
Unless we're going to zero, then you'll be better off.
Yeah. Unless we're going from zero, then I still got discount prices ahead.
Yeah, you'll be good. So like that's the part, right? Everyone's expecting everything to go to zero or go much lower, and they'll time it perfectly on when they're gonna buy it.
Like, do people even know what would happen if every one of these stocks went to zero? Like,
well, we say zero kind of flippantly, right? Like,
sure.
We don't mean that everything's going to zero. We just mean that everybody's portfolio is going to zero.
Zero,
So
yeah.
Big difference.
Yeah, and like if we're talking about this before we started the call, my thought process is if all of the things you were saying from a macro perspective are true, there are no levels at any point that are going to hold, right? Like no 200 week, no 20 month, no 40 month, no nothing, right? And we're not going to bounce out of it if it's macro, unless we wake up next month and CPI data has cooled from 8.3% to 2% again, right? Unless you get some magical, and we all know that's not going to happen.
But I don't know how much you pay attention to Moderna, but it kind of held. RSI still trending up a little bit there. Like we hit basically that bottom, or just undercut the previous bottom a few weeks back, about a month back, 2 months back. That's an interesting chart.
Yeah, and the volatility chart, right? The VIX futures is another one to pay attention to.
I mean, that's kind of interesting to me. I mean, I just want to flip through some charts while we're talking shop here, because I feel like they're, when I see that on Moderna, I kind of side with you even more so, GP, right? Like there might be new leadership, and Nick, you were saying this too, right? We got to find strength. Well, in last week's shitstorm, I would argue that strength. Now, it's not crazy volume of any kind, but it held, right? And when the market's basically shitting the bed, holding is better than flushing to some degree. I don't know. Interested in your guys's thoughts.
Yeah, on that. I think the leaders are getting hit, and the question is whether it's a one-time kind of liquidation hit or if there's further downside.
See, like that's a flush, right? Like that's pure flush, and it
best weekly bar.
It closed on its weekly high basically, but it's still, to me, that looks weak. Now, could it have an oversold trade in there? Sure, but that doesn't look like it's the strongest chart for the week to me so far.
To me, that is actually one of the strongest. And
really?
We've talked. Think about what I've been saying for Netflix: bull market leader, right?
True.
It broke down before everyone else. It was breaking down way
True.
before anything else was. And earnings kind of confirmed it both times, right? And you have this kind of hammer candle.
Kathy
finish
buy
up.
any path last week?
I don't know. I'm not really paying attention to her stuff anymore because she's selling Tesla to buy Coinbase, which I'm not saying is bad, but
She's
I don't have
been
a-
selling winners to front losers for a minute now.
yeah, I just don't have a rhyme or reason to explain anything she's doing anymore. So
Octa went below $100 again. Wow. That feels
and that's what I like to see.
that feels like a bargain to me.
It could be, but it could get to zero.
Oh
so.
yeah, for sure. It could take my portfolio to zero. You're absolutely right.
But that's so like Netflix was my bull market death kind of indicator back in January, right? When earnings happened. And for the first time, we've had a fairly positive weekly close.
Solar didn't have a good week, did it?
No.
Yeah, that is not bullish. Wow, snap.
And Hood had a great week.
Let's get there. Yeah, that looks pretty solid to me, actually. What was the low? Like $7, $8?
Yeah, and so this is like one of my, I think, top picks for the next few years. I think it continues to I was explaining why, and part of it's because their interface is just easy, right? It's the experience everybody wants, but no one provides. And they're continuing to add more products like retirement and stuff like that over the next few years. And it was at a reasonable valuation.
Twitter basically round trip, didn't it, since Elon's takeover talk?
Twitter is garbage.
Well, we know.
Palantir is 2.0. So it's Twitter's current situation has been written in stone since it kind of IPO'd, and management continues to flip the script. There's no one strong enough to come in and say, we're going to do something better. And now they're getting pushed around by Elon's nonsense. They have not shown any leadership. Hey, speaking of leadership, check out Boeing.
You know, I tweeted this.
Talk about the worst. Oh my God, terrible leadership.
Yeah, I tweeted this Friday. We actually flew on a 737 MAX, and you know, it was a really nice plane. But I gotta say, in the back of my mind, I was like, I'm glad they got this shit worked out.
But you know, the Dreamliner, they messed up the application, right? Like they continue to misstep every step along the way. And they're in a monopoly. It's Airbus and Boeing. They're not going anywhere.
Yeah, and we talked about Boeing's issues has been with leadership, right? It's not with necessarily, well, I shouldn't say it's not necessarily with the jets. It has been with the jets, but yeah, just the leadership gives you no confidence that anything's happening with them in a positive note as of yet.
Watch, like if they turn around and get like a new CEO or something like that people like, that stock's gonna pop like crazy.
Yeah. Broadcom held.
Yeah. They only went after NVIDIA in the chip space, it seemed like.
If there's something you guys want to look at, just holler at me. I'm just perusing.
How about we look at AMD?
Look at AMD. I'm afraid. I'm afraid to look at AMD. No, I'm not.
No, you shouldn't be.
Yeah, no, that looks really good.
Right? Like that
bounce where you want it to, double
Nick,
bottom.
would you call that a 4-week tight?
Pretty close. Let's see.
Yeah.
Uh,
Good.
It's not
on
super
AMD,
tight, but
no, I wouldn't.
It's a coiled
4 week
range.
loosey goosey.
Yeah, I mean, no, I wouldn't consider it a
Oh.
4-week tight.
oh, did you check out my IBM yearly tight chart?
No, I didn't. I saw it and I just, let's see.
Yeah.
Tell me that's not 3
IBM.
years tight.
I like that weekly chart a lot. I like the monthly too, dang.
We're all screwed if IBM becomes the leader again. Just letting you know.
Making a comeback.
Kind of crazy though. I mean, yeah, had a down week, but I mean that's not the worst looking chart that we flipped through here.
No, but it's exactly the same price as it was in August of 1999.
What's going on with the Chinas? They still getting their
Ooh,
teeth
not so
kicked
good.
in? Not so
Not so
great.
good.
Not so great.
When are the next couple of Fed announcements?
June,
Potential.
Yeah, I
June?
think June, I think is
June 14th, I think, or something like that. 14, 15.
FOMC calendar. The Federal Reserve meetings and calendars. I just Googled it. So June 14th and 15th is the next Daddy Powell, and then July 26th and 27th. They go on vacation for August, and then they'll be back in September.
Yeah, and the biggest one is the actual June 1st balance sheet runoff. That's when that begins, right? So we could see a fairly decent bounce going into that runoff.
What
right?
the fuck is Bristol Myers doing? It looks like it's flagging up there to me.
It does. So is UNH.
I kind of like Bristol Myers quite a bit better.
You guys zoom out a little bit on UNH. It's monster.
Yeah.
For the O'Neill IBD kind of guys out there, in his book How to Make Money in Stocks, there's an excerpt. Duzio tweeted me at it the other day. It says watch Federal Reserve Board rate changes. As a rule, interest rates provide the best confirmation of basic economic conditions, and changes in the discount rate and the Fed funds rate are by far the most reliable. In the past, 3 successive significant hikes in Fed interest rates have generally marked the beginning of bear markets and impending recessions. My question to that, or my retort to that, would be, aren't we already in somewhat of a bear market? Like I guess if someone is listening to this and wants to reply to me, I'd be curious.
We're definitely in a bear market, right? Like that's
right.
We're percentage wise. Oh, sorry. Actually, we're only in a bear market in tech, to be honest. I don't think SPY's hit 20%. It hit like 19.9.
So does the Fed, historically, had the Fed already been raising rates in a rising market environment, or once we've already started to, chop sideways or on the decline? But
I think this is very different from any other time, right? Like,
I totally agree.
Where you could argue, and I couldn't argue otherwise, the Fed doesn't have any tools left, right? They're in the middle of potential recession on the economy. They're in the middle of heightened inflation, and they can't cut rates because to the world, cutting rates is the only answer that they can do. But cutting rates to a supply side issue is not going to help at all.
Yeah,
it's only going to hurt demand, and that causes the recession to grow even bigger. I personally think they need to find a different way to tackle this, because it's not going to be rates. And I was reading somewhere, I can't remember where, that it might have been Kem Croissant or whatever his name was, he's saying that cutting rates here is actually going to hurt and help inflation go higher. It's going to have the adverse effect of what
They want.
people think it's going to happen. So it's some interesting stuff out there for sure from macro, but that's above my pay grade and my brain levels. So I'll stick to points and pivots and
Well,
totally.
I mean, the job market has been, strong. I mean, the unemployment is record lows again, right? And I can speak on the housing market since I'm both a seller and a buyer. The housing market, the craziness that we had like 3 or 4 years ago, or sorry, 3 or 4 weeks ago, has seemed to have dissipated. I mean, we just put an offer on a house on Thursday. We didn't get it, but it wasn't like somebody went 100,000 over asking or something crazy like what was happening basically the week before Easter and the week or so after. So I think that while the housing market is still very expensive, and I think that people are cognizant of what rates are, I'm here to tell you, people are still buying houses. We've looked at probably, I don't know, over 200 houses in the last couple weeks in person and online. And I just think that everything for the most part is being sold within a week of being listed. So I don't know how much I buy that. Sentiment's definitely not washed out if people are buying $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 homes, right?
sure.
Just had two friends
now
put
at
in
a
offers.
5% interest rate, like that is not keeping people out of the market.
Yeah, I've had two friends put in offers on homes in the last couple of weeks, but what they did was they knew they were already looking for a while and they had a feeling that rates were going to go up, so they locked in a rate for like I think 6 months with their banks. So they're and I'm sure they're not the only ones. I'm sure there was a lot of people who've done that if they knew they were going to be buying a house. Bags, I know your situation was a little different, but if you've locked in rates back in like February or March at like 4% on a 30-year mortgage, you're going to kind of push to kind of buy a house in the next couple of months, right? Going into summer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, May and June are very hot months for the housing market because people with kids want to have them in their house and in their school districts, right? They want to be ready for, August basically. So yeah. And right now people are given, 30-day closing, 60 days post occupancy. So in most cases, if you bought a house today, in a lot of cases you're looking 90 days out. So that pushes you right up to, school time for the kids. And I haven't seen the thirst for houses get quenched just yet.
Yep. And futures are rocking so far, by the way.
Oh, nice call. I'm enamored by the chart. So it was a crazy ass week.
It was a washout week, dude.
It was a crazy ass week.
It was a washout week. I think a lot of people finally said uncle, right?
Sonos actually held up a little bit too there. That's not terrible. A nice little volume bar there on the weekly. I mean, obviously still in a downtrend like so many are, but it's not the worst look that I've seen. Chips don't look chips as a whole don't look tremendously bullish just yet, but we'll see how that turns out.
Yeah, I gotta sign off soon, but my final thoughts are we have potential Morningstar reversals on on weekly candles across many names, right? So what we want to see this week is confirmation of that. Like, I don't mean the first couple of days. I mean the whole week, right? Like, it's got to close strong. So it can open strong, but it's also got to close strong. So that was the one thing that shifted on Friday or this week, was we opened really weak and we closed really strong.
Yeah.
So it's just something to watch. We retested the biggest supply zone since COVID lows, and we held and we pushed over that. Now we need to see the follow through candles to confirm some of that stuff. So yes, I think it's the bottom. Have I deployed every single dollar I have into the markets? No, but I definitely did buy Roblox and Hood and a few other names that I'm okay with owning to add lower, right? So it's
Nick,
just,
final thoughts?
Wait and see.
so are you trading anything this week, or are you just going to be waiting and seeing?
Honestly, if anything, it'll probably be in the energy sector.
Fair enough.
Maybe I'm a glutton for punishment, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know enough right now.
Can you pull up the weekly candle on XLE?
The weekly candle on XLE. I sure
Yeah.
can. There you go.
Does that look like a gravestone doji?
On the week, on the,
Potentially.
I like how they closed both last week and the week before. Basically
we all know how
closed
that one
out at
worked
the high of the week. Yeah.
Potentially.
It's an inside gravestone. It's not gravestone because gravestone happens on a gap up, but it's an interesting weekly candle
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, it's a wait and see for me right now.
Fair enough.
All right, guys. Well, we'll get back to it tomorrow, Monday, as soon as the markets ring that bell and get to going. But as always, I want to thank you guys. We're holding in there. We've been doing this for a minute, and you know, we've made some calls. Been waiting for this reversal, and let's see if we get it. Thanks, gents. Appreciate your time and your
Thank
knowledge
you.
drop.